All right. Good evening. I almost said good morning because I go to primarily morning meetings. I'm Tony. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you, Karen, for inviting me. And it's so nice that you and Mary are here from my home group, which is the 7 a.m. Central Standard Time over easy uh, meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's on Zoom now. But I've been going for a long time. I got sober in 1985. So uh, in March, all I know is it was the end of March, shortly after the first day of spring. But I don't really know the date because I was drinking. Uh, and basically, I'm just going to tell you a little bit how it was, what happened, and what it's like now. Uh, the first time I can remember drinking. I was just a little kid. My dad, we used to go over to my grandpa's for lunch, and my grandpa, my dad, and I would go over to my grandpa's friend's house, and they would drink shots and beers, and they would give me shot glasses full of beers when I was, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And they had a light bright at that guy's house, and I thought that was the most interesting light bright of all time. I didn't really put it together that I was half in the bag at 5 years old. Uh, but no other light bright could ever compare. So, and I did quite a bit of drinking when I was a kid. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but I really liked to drink my dad's beer. He would give me a sip, and then if he turned his back, I would drink a bunch of it. So I've always liked it. And I can remember getting drunk in public in third grade and in fifth grade. I remember one of my friends had a birthday party in his basement with a jukebox and all that stuff. And I drank so much at his birthday party, which probably wasn't that much because I only weighed about 50 pounds. But still, I drank so much that I threw up birthday cake all over the bushes outside his house. And, of course, nobody realized I was drunk. They just thought I was sick, but I was drunk. you know. And junior high was the same way, we'd skip school and go to somebody's house and drink, or we'd steal beer out of old man Murphy's refrigerator that he kept in the garage because he didn't keep count of how much he drank. So we'd always, steal his beers, and we wouldn't get that much, but we'd try and drink beer through a straw so we would get drunker. And we tried to make our own booze because like they made us read dandelion wine in middle school, and then we thought, well, we'll just make our own booze. So we used like some apple juice and sugar, and we kept it in the garage, and it was terrible, but we strained it and we drank it. I'm lucky I didn't die then. Uh, so that's how my drinking was. And I just always kind of felt out of place. My mother had a history of mental illness. And so periodically while I was growing up, she would just vanish, like I wouldn't really see her getting sick. She would just be gone. And my dad would say she's sick. And then, 2 months later, 3 months later, maybe I'd get to visit her, and then she'd come home, and then everyone would pretend that nothing had ever happened. So it was kind of like a Brady Bunch or Father Knows Best, interrupted by a twilight zone of where's mom, and then mom came back and went back to Father Knows Best, kind of, Leave It to Beaver kind of pretending. So that's how my life was growing up. I have one sister, and we were pretty close because we had to rely on each other uh, until when I got in high school. Uh, and I'm going to have to talk about drugs while I talk about alcoholism, because that was what really put me way over the limit. But I was drunk when I started drugs. There was never a drug I tried that I wasn't drunk already. So it's just like telling you that I got in a car crash, which I've done, or telling you that I got arrested, which I've had happen, or anything else. When I'm telling you about my drugs, it's a direct result of my drinking, because I don't think I ever would have tried them if I hadn't gotten drunk. But when I got high, it was like I just instantly fell in love. And I thought clearly this is what had been missing from my life. And now I am complete and I know what I'm going to do every day, all day for the rest of my life. And then I set out trying to do that. And, I was successful for a while, but I got in a lot of trouble. And I actually graduated high school because I got caught drinking and drugging at school so much that I had to go to outpatient treatment uh, at four different levels. They started me at level one, and then they caught me, and I had to go to level two, and then they caught me, and they put me right to level four. And even then, that wasn't enough. I was dying to get out of my house, and they said, well, if you take tests twice a week, drug tests twice a week, and you stay clean and go through this, we'll give you your diploma. And then I knew I could go to college and get out of the house. I mean, I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get out of the house. So that was pretty high stakes, and yet they tested us on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. So I really like Thursday night then because right after the test, we would go to group therapy for an hour. And then after therapy, I would drink and then, hope that it all wore off by, Tuesday the following week. So, and then after I'd been going to that, it was like a 6 week or 8 week program. I don't remember. After I'd been going about 4 weeks, a friend of mine and I were driving along and he started reading the pamphlet and he said, well, geez, Tony, look at this. They only test for these specific drugs, and they only test for two of them on the list every week. And I thought, well, that's great. I'll just try these other drugs. And so that, I mean, I had a lot to lose, and it didn't stop me in any way, you know, and that's my point uh, about it. So I went to college and I was sick the day I got there, and my plan, which I had bragged to all my druggy friends, was, well, when I go to college, I'm not gonna smoke pot anymore. I'm not gonna drop acid. I'm not gonna do coke. I'm not gonna do speed. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna drink because that's like what college is all about. I've seen Animal House, I know. So my plan was just to drink, and I was sick as a dog. I had, I don't know, 101 fever or something like that. But it was the day to go. It was like you had to move in. So I moved in, and my roommate said, well, there's a party down the hall. And I said, well, I'm kind of sick. I'm just going to go to bed. And he said, well, if you just want to stop and, for a beer. I said, no, no, I'm sick. So he left. I think it took me about 10 minutes to convince myself that I needed to get down the hall. So I started drinking again, and then a guy offered me a joint, and then, within a week I was dealing drugs again, you know, and long story short, uh, in the spring I took a lot of acid, and it was too much, and I had to get out of trouble. And my coke dealer was getting arrested, and I was afraid I was next, and so I said to myself, well, I know I'll call those nice people who got me through high school, and I'll sign some paper and I'll do some BS, and then after about a month everything will be cool and I can just go back to doing whatever I want. I'll just be more sneaky. And so I went, and then they wouldn't take me, so they made me go to the psych ward, probably because I had done too much acid. Um, but it was kind of funny because well, it wasn't funny. It was really tragic. I had to call my dad at like 2 in the morning because the place I had gone, my college insurance was in a different county and they wouldn't take it. So I had to call my dad at like 2:30 in the morning and say, I'm at this hospital. I need your insurance. So he came and got me. And then the next morning, he took me back to the hospital, and it was kind of like a scene from The Jerk. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to the hospital, I'm going to bring my records, and I'm going to bring this, and I'm going to bring the puzzle, and I'm going to bring, and he said, well, Tony, you don't even know they're going to let you in. And I just looked at him. I said, Dad, they're going to let me in. And sure enough, they did, you know. And so I just want to, say that I'm really grateful for that opportunity to be in the psych ward. Uh, because I needed it, and I didn't like that. I didn't like, in fact, the biggest obstacle I had to getting sober wasn't the first step, it was the second step because I knew you were calling me crazy and my mother was crazy and I could not be crazy. It was very important to me not to be crazy, which is funny because now it's just so obvious. I can't deny that my alcoholism and just my normal thought pattern is crazy, you know. Uh, and so I'll give you an example. Sometimes I go to a lot of meetings in a week and I feel really good. And then I say to myself, well, boy, I feel really good going to all these meetings. I think I'll skip it. I mean, it makes no sense. And yet I think that way, you know. So anyway, I went to the psych ward and then I got really angry when I was there because they didn't have drug rehab. It was just a psych ward. So I had to wait around there until I got, some of that stuff out of my system. And then I went to drug rehab and then I went to halfway house and then I went home. And somewhere in all of that, they played a Father Martin chalk talk where he was talking about being an alcoholic. And I can't even remember what Father Martin said, but I remember it was like getting stabbed in the chest because I could just feel how much of an alcoholic I was. And that it was like my dream of being sneaky for, 4 weeks and maybe writing a little drug biography that would end up being like the new Go Ask Alice. And then I would make $1 million and get a house with a fence, and a big brick wall and just do whatever I wanted by myself. That dream came crashing down listening to Father Martin, and I heard what an alcoholic I was, and I knew that even if I won the lottery, and even if somebody, gave me $20 million and an armed guard to protect me, that I couldn't get away with drinking anymore. I could just feel it. I just felt that no matter what I did, I would always know I was an alcoholic, and, you know, it was like a spiritual experience, it was not a rainbow and, flying bird spiritual experience, but it was honest, and it really showed me something, it showed me that, it wasn't, the first drink and it wasn't the circumstances or the people that I trusted that I shouldn't have trusted or the people that trusted me that shouldn't have. It was none of those things. I didn't drink because I was afraid. I didn't drink because I was angry. I didn't drink because I was jealous. Although I did drink because of all those things. But even more, I drink because I'm an alcoholic. I drink in the morning, I drink at night, I drink if I'm happy, if I'm sad. There's no condition to it. It's just how I am as an alcoholic until I get to Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I have hope, you know. I did surrender and I did try the steps and I did say that third step prayer and pick up a pencil and it changed me. When I was done writing my first four step, I was surprised. I was surprised that it happened so easily. And I was surprised that there were things that I wrote down that I had no plan of writing down. And so I kind of felt like, oh, wow, this higher power is working in my life. Maybe I really can stay sober. And I felt the same way after I did my fifth step. I felt so good. And I felt like all the guilt and the shame that I had, I could put it down. I could leave it in the past and I didn't have to walk around going, well, gee, this AA is nice. But if they knew, then they, would cross the street when they saw me coming, which is what I would have done. If I saw somebody like me, I definitely would have avoided them, because it was trouble. So the steps have really been uh, so instructive in my life and have changed how my life is, you know, uh, because they brought me to a higher power. I was not religious growing up. My mom was Protestant, my dad was Catholic, and he was supposed to be in charge of it. But like a lot of Roman Catholics, he asked us, "Do you guys like church?" And we said no. He said, "I'm sleeping in," and that was it. So, none of that stuff really got in my way too much of having a spiritual experience. And I've tried, like when I was doing the 11 step, different things. I've been to Methodist church and Lutheran church and born again church and even Catholic church. And I read Lao Tzu, you know, and I read The Art of War because it was supposed to be good and, like how to think. And I read the cognitive behavioral psychologists, and that stuff was actually very good. But for me, what really works is Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the 12 steps and it's the fellowship. Uh, I can't stress that enough. Uh, in the book, it says if you live in the middle of nowhere and you have just the book, you can stay sober by yourself. But I certainly would not want to do that personally. Uh, when I'm alone, I'm not in very good company if I haven't done what I need to do spiritually. I have to have a spiritual discipline in order to be of service and in order to get serenity, you know. That's for sure. I have to do that if I want what's offered. Uh, but really, I get to do it much more than I have to do it. Because I mean, I think relapse is a well-traveled and well-documented path. Stop calling your sponsor. Stop going to so many meetings. Don't use your phone. It's no surprise what's going to happen. I've seen it happen to thousands of people, you know, and I've been on that path, you know, but I've been lucky, because I didn't go back to drinking. And more than luck, God has done for me what I can't do for myself. And I need to be clear about that. Uh, that's what's happening. This program is supernatural to me. It would be natural for me to go and drink. That's natural to me. But I've gone beyond that by surrendering, by admitting that I'm an alcoholic and asking God for help. I've gotten that help. And what a miracle. And if I could do it, anybody could do it. And I only had to do it a day at a time. And I'm a little flighty right now. Sometimes I like to be like a duck swimming where, it looks like it's all smooth sailing and I'm going right along, but underneath I'm pedaling like today that duck is kind of upside down. So you're getting a little here and a little there, but that's okay, because that's what I've got. Uh, I like to remember a lot when I'm working my program that Bill did not go see Dr. Bob for no reason. Bill knew he was going to get drunk in that hotel if he stayed there. And so he went down in the lobby and made the phone calls and got connected to Dr. Bob and talked to him. I mean, helping Dr. Bob was important, but he did it because he knew he was going to drink if he stayed by himself. So I need to remember that. I don't have to have all my I's dotted and T's crossed in order to be helpful. I just need to tell the truth and I need to be willing, and that where the book talks about the proper use of the will is aligning it to God's will, and I used to have all kind of crazy thoughts like what kind of car would God drive? What kind of car does God want me to drive? And all these how would God dress? Like that's how I came into this program. And now it doesn't really matter uh, what kind of car I drive. It matters more that I leave 5 minutes early for where I'm supposed to go. That's what matters because I've learned, if I want people to drive better, then I can't leave my house late, you know, uh, because that's how I see things. When I'm walking across the street, all those crazy drivers are trying to kill me. But when I'm driving, those pedestrians are too slow, you know? So I have these perception problems, and that's why I still need AA after I've been sober for 39 years because it doesn't take much to get me thinking that I'm the most important person in every room I go in, or that the problem is somebody else, or, if only this was that or that was the other thing. And before you know it, I should be sitting in a high chair with a pacifier because that's how I behave, you know. But when I come to my meetings, when I'm able to stop struggling, that's one thing my friend Joe always says, if you're struggling, the first thing you should do is stop struggling. And I really like that because sometimes I think that, like, well, if I just do this harder or faster or, whatever, then that's going to solve everything. And more often, it doesn't solve anything. It just makes things worse. What really helps me is if I take a quiet time and then I reach out to people and I tell them that I'm hurting, and I'm kind of hurting today. It was a hard day. Uh, a couple years ago, I got a transfer at work into a department I don't like at all, but I'm retiring in 18 months, so I don't have any real financial choices, for my family. So I have to do this. So I'm sitting in this meeting I don't like, and then the hospital called me that my father, who's been in the hospital, has to go to um, extended stay for physical therapy, and that they're doing it at 2 o'clock. Which, I mean, I knew it was in the works, but didn't know it was going to be today at 2 o'clock. So I did leave my meeting and blah blah blah. So anyway, it definitely not a real calm day for me. It really very sad that he couldn't come home and live with us. But just that change, really shows you what sobriety is about. Because I hated my father. When I was using, I didn't like him because he was honest and hardworking. The nerve of that guy. And he didn't want me to take any shortcuts, and he didn't want me, to play the angles or any of that. And so I didn't like him at all, you know. And now it's like, one of the most important relationships in my life. And I've been able to really, make a place for him in my home and do everything that I need to do to try and take care of him now. And I owe that directly to AA, and it started when my grandmother was dying. And, like many alcoholics, I had a big fear of death. And so I didn't really want much to do with that. But I was talking to my sponsor, and he said, well, don't be an idiot. He said, you're going to miss her when she's gone. From now until she passes, you go and see her once a week. And so I started doing that. And then my dad had broken his ankle. And so then I called him up and I said, hey, Dad, I'm driving out to see Grandma. Do you want to come? And that's how AA changed my life, because if I was drinking, I wouldn't have even known where she was in a nursing home. I would never have called my father, you know. But these bonds, uh, I'm able to reach out and I'm able to be a part of something, And I thought that's what I was doing when I was drinking. I thought I joined a group and fraternity and all that, but it was only drinking in the room. Now things are real, and the godfather of my children and the best man at my wedding, and I'm his. We met in a halfway house when we were 19 years old, long-haired kids, and I've known him 39 years now, and that's AA, and I've been there when he was getting divorced, and he's been there when I had my cancer scare, you know, and it's real. And we've helped each other move, just thick and thin. And I can say that about 20 guys in AA, at least, hundreds really that I've sat at coffee with that have helped me get through a day or that I have helped, and it's just a miracle, the more you are part of the fellowship, the better your life will be, it's just that easy for me, it really is. And I think, of all the different things I've learned with all the steps and all of that, just that very simple thing. All the struggles I have are solved by something that I heard probably in the first 30 days of going to AA. Probably the first 2 weeks, to tell you the truth. You know, uh, it always comes down to surrendering, letting go, asking for help, day at a time. First things first. All those cliches are cliches for a reason, you know, uh, and that's, always where things are for me. And that's okay. It's really good that Alcoholics Anonymous is built for alcoholics, so they know, it's okay with them, you know, that I stole when I was the treasurer. I didn't really mean to steal. It was just easier to take $5 out of the secretary, or the treasurer envelope than go to the bank. So I had to give that treasury up and do a 10 step to the group. That was pretty embarrassing. But they didn't kick me out of the group or anything. They just said, maybe you should just chair the meeting instead of be the treasurer, and that's true. So I did that. And then being a service, I I love AA because of the service. When I got here, I was not wanted in a lot of places. I show up and, if people thought I was holding, then I was welcome. But if they didn't think so, I wasn't super welcome, or I was the butt of a joke or, whatever. And I wasn't necessarily clean, didn't really smell good. I drank so much that I wore shoes with Velcro on them because I couldn't really tie my shoes anymore, you know. Uh, so I had those kind of problems. And to come to a place where they'd say, okay, well, just empty the ashtrays and stack up the chairs. And then, I was a part of something. And my friend Dave C always says, you know, uh, an alcoholic has a hole in him and he's trying to fill it. And alcohol and drugs came pretty close, but in the end, that they left that hole deeper and bigger than ever before. And he calls it the God hole because only God can fill that hole, you know. And I found God in AA. And it's funny because sometimes I still think to myself, gosh, I don't believe any of this God stuff. And yet it has been no obstacle to my higher power saving me every day. That's how strong my higher power is, that in spite of myself, I'm still sober. You know, I'd like to tell you it's because of all the hard work I did on the 4 step and the 10 step and all the other steps. It's not it. It's my higher power has done for me what I couldn't do for myself. And so I'm here sharing that with you as honestly as I can because I am convinced that a higher power will do the exact same thing for you. If you open up and say, God, I need help, you will get that help. You may not recognize it, you may not like it when you get it, but you can stay sober for it long enough for it to turn into the best thing that ever happened to you, just like it did for me. You know, when I think back, what a wretch I was. Oh my God, you know, and now I'm a school teacher. And like I said, I'm nearing retirement, but I mean, people trust me with their children. That's pretty crazy. And I'm a respected member of my community and I have degrees and, I've had a job and I have a house and I have all this stuff. And it's just so nice. But for sure, the most important thing I have is a relationship with my higher power and a relationship with Alcoholics Anonymous. What you people have done for me is just so humbling, you know. It just the when I see things clearly, I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful. There's just nothing else in my world that's more important than me seeing, the miracles happen in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. And I've seen them not happen too. I had some sponsees that have gone back out, and one committed suicide, and it was pretty hard. And I didn't know if I could be a sponsor anymore after that. And things have just kind of grown away in sponsorship for me, and that's okay. Because when that happened, and then you know through the ups and downs of it, I just ended up. I started chairing a meeting, then I started going to my club business meeting, and I asked a question, and then before you knew it, I was on the board, and then before before you knew it, the president quit because he got in a fight with the other guy, and then I was the president of the club, you know, and you know, I was talking to my sponsor about it, and I was sharing my concerns that, a chucklehead like me is now the president. And he said, well, don't worry. Look at the country. Chucklehead presidents all throughout history. And he said, AA is much stronger than that. He said, don't worry, you can't mess it up. He said, even if you were trying to mess it up, which you're not, you can't. You can't destroy AA. And I just love that about it. And I feel that that's true, and, that's starting to get involved in service work and do that kind of thing. That's when I learned that a resentment and a coffee maker uh, uh, make twice as many meetings as there used to be. That's all it takes, and that's how it is. That's how we grow. It's okay, you know. So anyway, I don't have too much more to say, except, whatever you're going through, somebody in AA has gone through it and not drunk over it. You know, my friend Joan, uh, who passed away from cancer, she used to say, there's nothing, absolutely nothing on earth that a drink will make better. There's just nothing. And I just used to love that, and I need to remember that, because like some of the stuff with my dad, man, but I know a drink will make it better, even though I want to escape sometimes, there's a healthy way to do that. So, just a day at a time. I hope you all stay sober and, join me on this adventure, because is it an adventure? And, I just want to be part of the solution today. And I think, in closing, my favorite quote of all AA, and I don't even know how to quote it right, is, uh, that we're part of something larger than ourselves, and it's an ever expanding circle of peace on earth and goodwill toward men, you know? And I never thought I'd feel that way, So thank you all for teaching me that. And with that, I'll pass.